my name is Ellie Tennant. If you didn't guess my shirt and the wall behind me, I am a Crystal Palace fan. Welcome back to episode 19 of Either I View. This is a series I created to connect the Filipino members ahead of our upcoming fixtures. This weekend, we're travelling to the City Ground to play Nottingham Forest, and today I'm joined with someone you might recognise from my first episode of Either I View. It is George Edwards. How are you doing today, George?
Hi Ellie, yeah, I'm good, thanks. Hope you're okay.
Very good, thank you. Thank you for joining me once again. Can you believe it's been 5 months since we filmed that last episode? It's
I
been
know, particularly with Europe, the season flies, doesn't it?
it's flown by. But you currently sit 17th in the table. You come off the back of a 2-0 victory over Brentford and a draw to Arsenal, so in pretty high spirits. How are you feeling? Obviously not where you wanted to be, but how are you feeling for the season so far?
I think you can't help but be disappointed, to be honest, if you're a Forest fan. It was the most exciting season ever, really. You know, we had a manager that we all adored. We had players that all bought into what we were trying to do. We made loads of signings for reasons we don't need to discuss. We had the Europa League sort of ready to go. So, like, I've never been so excited as a Forest fan. So, to then see Nuno fall out with hierarchy, Ange appointed, it was the most clueless manager I've ever seen, and to be turned into Sean Dyche in October. You know, if you'd have told any Forest fan at the start of the season that Sean Dyche will be a manager by October, you'd have been, I think you'd have laughed because you would not have believed it. So you can't help but be disappointed with how it's gone, particularly with how we've sort of contrasted the Europa League and the Premier League. We've not been able to compete in both really. And then two sort of defeats to Braga and Wrexham in January have really put a dampener on what otherwise has been a decent patch of form, you know, from our last 3 games in the Premier League. As you mentioned, West Ham away we drew and got a clean sheet against Arsenal, and then won and got a clean sheet away at Brentford. So 7 points from 9 is not a bad return. And I think our next 3 games are crucial. We've got you guys, we've got Leeds after that, and then Wolves as well. So they'll define our Premier League season, I think. But as much as, yeah, we're starting to pick up points now in the Premier League and looking like we may steer clear of relegation, you still can't help but feel disappointed because it's been such an underwhelming season completely.
Definitely. I've seen all over your social media that you've been to a lot of European games. How have you found being in Europe for the first time in 30 years? Is that right?
Yeah, 30 years. Yeah, I
Yeah, how
mean,
you find it?
it's weird because I've absolutely loved it. I've been to all 4 of the away European games and 3 and soon to be 4 of the home games once this goes out. I've been to every single one, and particularly when you go away, you know, following your team in Europe is just it's incredible. I'm sure people listening to this will have gone with Crystal Palace,
Yeah,
and it's such an escape as well.
yeah.
Until the Braga game, but the first 3 games where we went to Seville, we went to Graz, we went to Amsterdam, and it was just a complete escape of all the negativity of the season, everything we've got against the club, and just a way to go and celebrate that your team's in Europe, somewhere that most of people my age growing up never even thought was a prospect because we were forever a championship club. You know, obviously we've won 2 European Cups in the past and stuff. We've got quite an illustrious history in Europe, but it was just behind everybody and nobody ever thought it would ever come back. So it's been the most magical experience to follow my team in Europe. I've absolutely adored it. Obviously, on the pitch, it's not gone to plan. You would expect, as the English side, to be doing what Aston Villa are doing and almost coasting
Yeah.
through. And especially when you look at the teams we've played, a lot of the teams we've played are actually in and around the top 5 and 6 of the league. But we've not played a good team in the Europa League. I can guarantee you that. Even Porto, who we played and beat, who are top of the Portuguese league, they were no good. You know, we've not played good teams, but we've not been able to compete, and we've lost more than we've won. So that shows where Forest are at that. So yeah, in terms of off the pitch, it's been absolutely incredible, but on the pitch, it's been a real letdown and a real showing that our summer recruitment was absolutely abysmal.
I feel like our teams are in very similar positions at the moment. Do
Mhm.
you think, I think it's massively impacted our season? Would you say that Europe has had a detrimental effect on your season overall?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously both clubs weren't really prepared for Europe until it was sprung upon us. You guys winning the FA Cup unexpectedly, Forest going from finishing 17th or 16th and 17th to then finishing 7th. You can't plan for something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, once it happens, you try and do as best as you can. You try and recruit. So yeah, I mean, obviously none of us would turn it down. You know, we'd absolutely adore being in Europe, and you wouldn't turn it down. But we've not done what I know. Obviously, Brighton's a rivalry for you guys, but they built up, they stayed up for 2 years, then they finished 14th and then 12th. It was a slow progression to finish it in Europe. Forest and Palace out of nowhere finished in
Yeah,
Europe, so you can't be ready for it, and it's always going to have that effect. So yeah, undoubtedly it's had an impact on our season, but I still think we could have and should have handled it a lot better than we have.
definitely. Looking to more current events, obviously the January transfer window ends this week, next week.
Yeah.
How would you evaluate Forest's transfer window?
Well, we've been pretty inactive, to be honest. We've just signed Lorenzo Luca from Napoli, a striker, 6'7". It looked like a bit of a strange signing because, well, it didn't look strange. It just looked like it was a shortcut because he's not really been in form. But Forest have struggled, obviously, with Chris Wood being out all season. They've struggled to have a consistent number nine. Igor Jesus has been up there. I think he's about my height, and you know he's bustling, but he's nothing like Chris Wood. So they've just almost signed the opposite to him in terms of a 6'7" tall striker. So you're hoping that can pay off. I think we really want to get another striker through the door. Obviously, Mateta from you guys
Yeah,
is somebody who's being linked with us, and if that happens, it'll be quite funny given the history
uh-huh.
between both clubs.
It's a
But I
joke.
prefer somebody like Strand Larson, to be honest. I think he's younger. He's got a similar scoring record. He's done it in a worse team than you guys, and I think he offers more potential. And particularly how Forest and all clubs in our position have to be as a selling club. You're thinking about the future, and you're far more likely to get something out of Strand Larson than you are Mateta, who's 28
Mm,
and who's looking for the sort of pinnacle move of his career. Strand Larson, you think he's still got those gears to go. So it's not been the most exciting transfer window. We've obviously just lost Douglas Luiz as well back to Aston Villa. So you're hoping that between now and the next 3 or 4 days we can sign another midfielder because Luiz, I think he's made about 15 appearances for us, so he's still had an impact. And with Europe and the Premier League continuing, we can't really lose somebody without replacing him. So, you know, hopefully if we get a midfielder in and a striker, then it's been a very inactive transfer window, which Forest transfer windows aren't always, but maybe that's, been for the right reasons.
yeah, ours has been very inactive. We've signed one player, Brennan Johnson, someone that you're familiar with. And what would you say to Palace fans who are currently doubting him? What should we be looking out for? What would you say?
I think obviously with Forest we cut him a lot of slack because he was the homegrown boy, he was the homegrown hero, and really he was the only real attacker we had for a lot of the time. We had him in a 1 year and then 8 defenders on the pitch and the goalkeeper. So we adored what he brought to us. I think he's a very patchy player. You know, he'll go through periods of scoring, in 6 games in a row, and then he might go quite missing, for sort of 10 games. I think you've got to be patient with him. He'll give everything. I mean, obviously for your homegrown club, you're going to give everything, but he's not a player that leaves anything out there. He'll put his all in, which I think as a fan is the basis of what you want. He's quick, he can beat a man. With pace, he's often quite frustrating with his final delivery, and if he can't beat a man with pace, he maybe doesn't have the skill to make up for it. But if he gets past a man, he is clinical with his ball in and with his finishing. And for a winger, as you saw it in the sort of Europa League final when he was in there, he's got a real eye for goal as a winger as well. So if you can utilize him in the right ways, it can be a really effective machine. And you know, him scoring at the weekend is probably almost a formality against his old club. So this will probably be the start of something, I'd imagine.
That would be amazing. Hopefully we see that side of him very soon. Just in previous games, he's been a bit missing, and he hasn't been in the game at all. But yeah, this weekend, hopefully we see a
And the
different
thing about him
version.
is, obviously at Forest he was a homegrown lad, whereas
Yeah,
when he's gone to Spurs and when he's gone to you guys, there's been a price tag attached. There's
yeah,
been there's been weight on his shoulders that is something that's new for him. For us, it was always our homegrown hero. We always loved him, and then he's gone to 2 clubs where they're expecting something straight away. And particularly, he's only still 22, 23. He's still learning his feet in the Premier League, and he's not had consistent game time since he's left. So I think with patience he'll come good. But obviously, I love the bloke, so I'm going to give him more slack than you guys maybe would do.
that is very fair point. Looking at the team you have at the moment, who is one player we should be fearful of?
Oh, that's a good question because we're not really in the best form at the minute. I think the one that's caught the eye this season is Elliot Anderson. He's
Mhm.
obviously played for England. He looks like he's nailed that spot as England's sort of city midfielder alongside Rice and Bellingham, which I think he really deserves based on for England. He just looks so at home. He steps into that side and he looks like he belongs. And it's so easy for international players when you're surrounded by 10 other players who've done it for a while to just sort of go missing. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't shy away. He's been able to have the best form of late, but he's the one that catches the eye. But at the minute, our most informed player is Ibrahim Sangare, who sits next to him, midfielder. We signed him from PSV a couple of years ago, and he's been a very unlucky player. He came into form, then he went to AFCON and got malaria. He came back, came into form, got a big injury. So nothing's really gone for him in a Forest shirt. But this season he's really kicked on. He performed well. He went away to AFCON and we didn't win a game. He came back and we started winning again. We started performing again. And he makes everybody around him better. You know, Anderson looks a better player. Gibbs White looks a better player. We look a lot more balanced as a team. So attacking wise, we don't have any real standouts, and we're a Sean Dyche team, so we're never going to be the most attacking, threatening side. We scored both our shots on target away at Brentford at the weekend. But I think our midfield is midfield in the Premier League, I think, is where games are won and lost. And I think Anderson, Sangare, and Gibbs White of any team in the Premier League is pretty strong. So for me, it'd be Ibrahim Sangare along with Elliot Anderson.
The last time we spoke, we were talking about Elliot Anderson at Adam Wharton. I'm not sure if you saw our game.
Well, I see Wharton didn't fancy it this weekend, did he?
He didn't fancy it, no. He got himself sent off, so you do not have to worry about him this weekend, unfortunately.
We won't worry, Ellie. Don't worry about that.
That's me, shut up. So if you had to choose one player to be fearful of from our team, who would it be?
Well, as soon as Forest are trying to sign Jean-Philippe Mateta, I think I probably have to go with him, in fairness. And as much as he's not had the best form this season, we are crying out for a striker who's proven in the Premier League. So it would have to be Mateta, and maybe it might come true. Who knows?
I mean, you can have him. Based on his form at the moment, you can have him. I don't want him in my team. Take him. But it's been painful watching him recently. He's missing open goals. He's missing shots that he should be scoring easily. And last time we spoke, he was in such good form and doing amazingly. And now I don't know what's happened. My whole team is falling apart, and that's just icing on top of the cake, I suppose.
And that's what concerns me about Mateta as well. You want somebody who's going to give everything to the fight until the end and not just be there, until he wants to be. So you got to worry about the mindset there. And that's why I would prefer Strand Larsen rather than Mateta at the minute. And I think you guys are in for Strand Larsen if you lose Mateta. Is that right?
I don't know. I've been avoiding
probably correct.
They're doing my head in so much. Everywhere is either Oliver Glasner's leaving, Oliver Glasner's had an outbreak in the press conference. It's just negativity everywhere we go. I was hoping he'd be sacked before this match, because this match is huge for us. I'm not sure if you see it like this, but from a player's perspective, this is a 6-point relegation battle. This game is huge. Do you see it that way as a Forest fan?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I mentioned at the top of the show, our next game is you guys, Leeds and Wolves, all teams that are around us. Obviously, if we win, that drags you on the same points as us. That drags you into the relegation battle much more, and it puts us further out of it. And then you're hoping you can react to that with results against Leeds and Wolves. So, yeah, definitely. If we lose that, obviously West Ham play Chelsea away, so that's not the easiest game for them. But we've got a bit of breathing space now, and I think Forest wants in a position come mid-February where we can prioritise the Europa League. We can only do that if we get results in these next 3. So this game is vitally important for our season. So I think from a Forest perspective, I agree. And I think both teams really, as much as a point will be good, you don't really want anything other than 3 points.
We need the 3 points, definitely. So is it your home stadium? You are an avid Dorothy City owned with every game? Is that right? This season?
Unfortunately, I've been to every game this season, yeah.
Unfortunately. Do you have any tips, tricks, or must-dos for fans travelling there this weekend?
I think Forest is widely regarded, along with Newcastle, as one of the best days out and away days in the Premier League, to be fair. And I can see why. I love Nottingham. Obviously, I'm biased, but I love Nottingham. It's a great city. They've set up a really nice new away part at Notts County Stadium. It's called The Nest. It's like a fan zone. If you went last season, Palace fans, you probably went there as well. So that's a really good setup. And yeah, put the animosity aside between the clubs and just have a good day, because I think both sets of fans are friendly. So even if you do feel a bit of animosity, it's not caused by us fans. So just go there in good spirits and have a good time. But hopefully you're not cheerful at the end.
Wow. Wow. I wish the same for you as well. And what is your prediction for the match this weekend? Obviously, last time it was 1-1. Was you there?
No, actually, that's the one game of the season I've missed.
Me too.
Yeah, I really don't like to go. I don't want to be mean, but I just can't stand going to Selhurst Park because you can't actually see unless you're
Exactly.
on the front row. Which the last 2 years I chose on the front row, but I couldn't go. My grandparents weren't going. Work needed a chef, so it was the one game I thought, you know what, I just won't go. So that is the one game this season that I've not been to. So yeah, I'll be going there. In terms of prediction, I really don't like predicting Forest wins. So I'm just going to sit on the fence and go 1-1. I think both teams obviously want to win, but will probably take a point. So that's probably what's going to happen if we're being honest.
It's a very fair prediction. I think it, yeah, probably a draw. If that's the best we can hope for as Palace fans, but we shall see. Um, I wish you the best of that for the rest of the season after this match. Thank you very much for joining me again. Where can my viewers find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ellie. Always happy to help. You can find me on Twitter at George Edwards05 with one E. I'm also part of Fanalysis, as you are, and I also write for thefamousclub.co.uk and do podcasting for The Woodwork and for 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. You probably can't remember all of that. So, yeah, I'm George.
No, uni. Jesus, that is a lot.
Probably too much.
Never too much. Be sure to give George a follow, and I will see you next week for another episode of Either I Have You.